Power Project crew, thank you for checking out today's episode. This episode was recorded on May 6th, and it is with our new friend, Jerred Moon. Jerred is an author, fitness coach, veteran, and podcast host. And what we got into today was a bunch of home workout stuff. Jerred wrote the book, Garage Gym Athlete, and we talked about his new book coming out soon called Killing Comfort. But basically, this guy has been working out at home since day one, essentially. He talks about his first squat rack being made out of wood that wasn't even bolted down to the wall. So every time he would use the top portion to do pull-ups, like the whole rack would fall forward on him. But anyways, what you're going to get out of this episode is a ton of motivation. We talked to him about, some people are having a hard time right now without a gym, without home gym equipment. But these are all the people that he's been working with for many, many years. So he has tons of experience in this department. And I know you guys are going to get fired up because I know we are. Jerred gave us tons of tips on how to get motivation, how to stay motivated, how to set goals and how to really break through certain plateaus. And even if you are a trainer yourself, we get some really good insight on what trainers are lacking right now during this lockdown. So literally everybody, if you're a trainer or the trainee, you're all going to get a ton of value out of this episode. Please find Jerred's social media links down in the YouTube and Facebook descriptions and the podcast show notes, wherever you're listening to this. Click in the view more or whatever the heck it is on your app, and find his links and let him know what you guys think about this episode. Give him a huge shout out and thank you, and let him know that you guys heard him on this podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this episode with our buddy Jerred Moon.
Yeah, so I just cooked up 2 burgers, some of those Piedmontese burgers, threw some raw cheddar cheese on top, and it was just amazing. I made 2 of them, and I was like, I'm going to eat this one. You guys heard this story from me before. I sit down and eat this one. I didn't think I had enough time to eat 2 of them. I was wrong.
I ate 5 yesterday again.
Oh, so they're freaking amazing.
Yeah. Actually, what's really cool, so I put 3 of them. I had 3 of them on the pan, but then I did 2 of them in the air fryer. The air fryer burgers turned out amazing, way better than the ones I did on the pan. So...
Five is pretty good because those are pretty good sized patties.
Yeah, I was full by the end.
Yeah, those are thick boys.
Have you ever had the sliders before?
No, I haven't. For
some reason, the sliders are amazing. I don't know if it's like the consistency or how it works, but they're really good too. They're kind of I like putting the sliders in a pan and just throwing a ton of cheese on top of them, and then the cheese melts all around them and gets a little crusty and crispy, and it's just awesome.
I think it's the added surface area of the slider. The patty, it's just a big chunk. The little sliders has just they are delicious. And we're just talking about specifically the burgers and the sliders, but everything that they have at Piedmontese is amazing. For more information on that, you guys got to head over to Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. At checkout, enter promo code Power Project for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you get free 2-day shipping. Highly recommend the flat iron steaks. What's the diet steak? Flank steak? Is that the one? Bavette steak, although flank steak is good, but Bavette is insane. Of course, the tomahawk ribeyes. Everything is leaner, so it has less fat, more protein, cooks faster, even defrosts faster. You guys seriously need to dive into that ASAP. Okay.
Are you guys wearing any pants by any chance? Or do you ever wear pants during the show?
I just don't wear boxers, but I have shorts on.
Oh,
I'm just curious.
That's okay.
Because we could be kind of wearing whatever or not wearing whatever we want.
You couldn't be here outside. Just your dick flapping in the air and everyone walking by.
That would be a little bit odd. Especially some of these older folks around here. They'd be like, what is going on in that house?
Hey, you might start the movement to turn that area into a nude beach.
Yeah. Hey, you never know.
You might start the revolution.
It's nice being outside though. Getting that sunlight feels good.
I just took I think I walked for 25 minutes after our last podcast, and man, it's just sunlight. It cures everything. It's like nature's coffee.
Is it it's going to be pretty warm over there, right? In Sacramento?
Yeah, it's super warm right now. It's probably
it's kind of that well, it's a little bit past that weird weather where it's like hoodie in the morning and then, you know, sweating in the middle of the day. But like this morning I was a little chilly, and so I still have the long sleeve on, but towards the end of the day, man, it gets pretty dreadful.
You have our man in the room.
There he is.
Hey, how's it going?
What's going on, Jerred?
Yeah, not much. How's it going?
It's going great for us over here. Great to have you on the show today. Appreciate you spending some time with us for today. And might as well just kind of like dive right in. I think that, you started the perfect cause and the perfect business in a time period where everyone has to try to figure out a way to work out at home now, because we don't have the convenience of going to the gym. So if you don't mind, give us a little bit of your background and tell us a little bit more about your garage fitness journey.
Yeah, I'll happy to do that. And thanks for having me on. So the backstory, I was really into fitness going back to when I was like, 14 years old. I had an uncle who was a power lifter and then a bodybuilder. And like, he just kind of got me into things. And it was like pre-internet. Like he told me one day at the beach that I was just too skinny. And I was like, well, can you do something about that? And he's like, yeah, I'll send you a program. And so I like just waited every day for, his program. It was like a 40-page packet that was mailed to me, and he sent it to me.
He just told you flat out, you're too skinny.
Yeah, he's just too skinny. And I wasn't even offended. I was like, is there something I can do? That'd be awesome. Like I didn't even know like lifting weights would be something I could do to like fix that. And so he got me on track, got me super into fitness. But I always had this dream early on of being a fighter pilot. And that's what I really wanted to do. And so I ended up going down that journey all through college, going into pilot training and actually got injured. And then after that happened, I was like, you know what? I'm going back, full on fitness here. Like, let's get back, bring the passion back. And so I started a side hustle at the time, just coaching people, writing articles. But I had absolutely no money. My wife and I were in like so much debt. And so I just started building things. I built a power rack out of wood. I built a plyometric box. I built every single thing that you could imagine. And that slowly turned into me, getting more certifications and, writing more blog posts, doing videos. And then, it's been a 10-year journey now of just helping people exercise in their garage. And that's why we have GarageGymAthlete.com, just to help people do that, whether they're building a project or need some programming. That's what we're trying to do these days.
That's how you know someone's dedicated, when they have a wooden squat rack.
Yeah, I got a lot of flack for that over the years, because it was not. I've seen some pretty impressive designs, but like I said, cash was tight back then, so it was not even like, let me buy the thickest, best wood I can. It was like, what can I get away with here that will still hold like my squat weight? Like what's the minimal viable wooden squat rack I can do here?
What was it carrying at that point? Like, what could it carry without having a potential mishap?
At that time, my squat was like 420, and I could put 420 on it without it breaking. And so I never really loaded it up past that, because I was like, this is what I squat. I don't need to do like a 500-pound test because I'm not there yet. So I'll see what it does with 420. It didn't break. So I was like, cool, then I'm good for bench and press and everything else with this rack.
So you were able to do other movements out of the rack. It wasn't just a squat rack.
So I set it up to where it had like everything was fixed. So if like you came to work out with me and we weren't the same height, like that would be problematic for you. It was just perfect for me. But I even actually, my dad is like the mastermind behind a lot of this stuff. He's like got that engineer brain, and he would always come over and visit, and he'd be like, all right, man, we need to make this just like a little bit safer. Like, I'll help you. So he helped me like, bolt it to the wall, because previously if like you did like a pull up too fast or something like that, the rack would start to tip over. And so he helped me bolt it to the wall and get it a little bit safer. But then looking back, him and I like joke, we're like, I don't know if that was like the smartest decision, some of those things, man, but it got me through. It got me through, several years. I think I did that for like 5 solid years, DIY projects in a wooden garage gym, basically.
I remember when I started seeing some of the like the home gym stuff. I remember my dad being like, "Oh, we can make that," and I'm like, "Yeah," but like the way my dad would have made it would have been so wobbly and probably would have fell over or something. Just because like, that's good enough. But how much did like that rack cost?
I have it on my website. I think I got it for like I put all those days dollars, so we are talking like 10 years ago. I think it cost me like $120 or maybe less, something like that for a full. And we had supports in the bottom, so like if I had to bail, which I never ended up doing because it would have busted the wood and you'd have to kind of rebuild it. But those were there. Those safety supports were there if I needed it. But it was a full like cage,
Sick.
Tell us about some of the benefits of training like that. Like, there's something kind of cool about limited training, and I realize it's unlimited because you could pick up a plate and do an overhead squat with it. But like, you made a squat rack for a reason. Like, you made a squat rack because you're going to do a front squat out of it. You're going to do a regular squat out of it. You do kind of standard weightlifting and powerlifting movements, shrugs, bent over rows, maybe overhead pressing, all those kinds of things. So tell us a little bit about the advantage of not having access to everything. Like, sometimes you walk into a big gym and, you can do a leg extension, a leg press, a leg curl, and they got the seated leg curl and the regular leg curl and the single leg curl. They got all these different options. In your opinion, what's some of the advantage of being in the garage gym and having some limitations to what you can do?
Yeah, and that's, that was the world I came from. So growing up in high school and through college, I worked at gyms and like Globo gyms, like Lifetime Fitness type, every piece of equipment known to man. And so I was accustomed to having access to all these things, but it was really, when I was in pilot training, the timetable was just ridiculous. It was mandatory 12-hour days, like in the location, like they wouldn't let you leave the building for 12 hours. Then you'd come home and study for several hours. And I'd be like, there's no way I'm going to the gym. Like, I don't see how this is possible, but I'm not going to not work out. So I'm going to do something at home. And so the advantages is that it simplifies things. You aren't overwhelmed with what you could do. And so I've always been about following a program. So when I started this idea of the garage gym, I kind of pulled up my program, which is all printed out, and I kind of audited it. I was like, okay, if I have like just this in the garage, like what can I do? And I got to about like 80 to 85% good. I'm like, well, I can do most of this program. There's like a few specialty machines or whatever I'm not going to be able to hit, but like it's going to be fine. And so I just kind of got away from some of those, isolation machines, and you talk about leg curls things. And I found other ways to, like, you can get really creative with bands in the gym, especially like once you add bands, you can do a lot of that stuff. But that's what I did. I just like, what's realistic here with very minimal equipment. And then I just kept adding piece after piece until I feel like for how I like to train, I can do anything I like.
How about this? Like, what do you think are some really slept on pieces of equipment that maybe people should be thinking about getting for the garage gym? Like, recently I've been working with a lot of kettlebells these past few months, and I've found out literally how effective they are just because of the lack of gym. They're super effective, and it's something I'm going to keep moving on with. Are there any pieces of equipment you think strength athletes should consider other than, their squat rack and maybe a platform?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going outside the lines of, kind of traditional stuff, I'd probably say a sandbag, because you can load them up, you can empty them out if you need to store them, and you can get really heavy sandbags, whether it's like a strongman style or just something that you can walk around with. Now, you can't get that barbell stimulus, right? That real heavy weight with a sandbag most of the time, but you can get a really good workout and do a lot of cool stuff with sandbags. And I wasn't into sandbags for a long time. I started adding them to my training a little bit last year, and it's been a lot of fun. It's something cool to add to the routine to switch things up.
When
they're tough to pick up too. Yeah, sandbags are brutal to pick up.
Oh yeah,
they're so like just bags. Yeah, they can't. There's no handle. It sucks. When the lockdown started, I just, like a lot of other people, were like, oh shit, I got to go buy dumbbells. I got to buy this, and then everything was like either sold out or prices were through the roof. Now I'm like, I'm really glad I didn't, because I realized I didn't need any of it. Like, I have enough here already. But at what point do you think somebody, say they run into like, okay, I do want to work hamstrings, I don't have bands, like, okay, maybe I'll do something else. And then they run into the same problem like over and over, like, shit, okay, maybe it's time to upgrade. At what point should somebody actually be like, okay, yeah, I think it is time to add some more equipment to my arsenal?
I think first you got to make sure that you're the type of person who can train alone in your garage, and make sure it's something you're going to stick to. So get that minimal amount of equipment. We typically recommend, like a barbell, plates, pull-up bar, kettlebells, and dumbbells, and that's about all you need to get started. And then if this is like, hey, this is something that you're going to stick with and you're going to do, like start adding those pieces, slowly. Cause talking about having a wooden garage gym, fast forward to today, I have a 3-car garage with it doesn't look like a garage, it's just, there's, flooring everywhere, equipment everywhere. It's still pretty minimalistic. I don't have a bunch of machines and stuff, but I just know that this is something I'll be doing for the rest of my life. So I just add one piece of equipment at a time as I see it come up. And I think if you're going to stick to it, then just every time you feel like you run into a wall, make the purchase or, make the shopping list or something, and then kind of go through that triage list and knock it out over time.
What about women? What can we do about women? Because they want to consume a large area of the garage with their car. They're obsessed with putting their car in there.
Yeah. So this is a battle I fight.
Yeah. It's a battle about space, right?
Yeah. And so this is my second house in Texas, and my first one, I kind of won the battle. I was like, okay, I got the garage, we're not going to really park in there. And that was all cool. And then we had this massive hailstorm roll through. It ruined both of our vehicles, had to get a new roof on the house. It was just bad. And I was like, okay, maybe you were right. And so we have, my car is basically a beater. She has the nice car. And so there's enough space in there when the garage is clean to where she can roll up in there and park, and there's no problem. And if we really had to, we can fit both cars. But I lost that battle through just a really bad storm, unfortunately.
How much, in terms of, I guess, pricing, or you know what? I mean, I don't know. Is the website that you have, is that a resource for where you can buy equipment? Because I'm curious, a lot of people want to get the best deals on this stuff. Where do you suggest they start?
Yeah, no, we have a lot of DIY equipment. I don't publish too much information about equipment these days. I've really kind of moved more towards just training and training methodology over the last several years. I think Garage Gym Reviews, my buddy Cooper runs that website. He has a lot of great info. If you're what's the best barbell? He's tried 15 of them side by side and done tests I wouldn't even think of. So definitely somebody you want to check out if you're looking for good deals and, where's the best economy and things like that.
And along with that, you were mentioning figuring out if you're going to be the type of person that's actually going to use your garage gym. And it's funny because there's a lot of individuals that have come to work with me or that I've worked with that they had a full on garage setup, but they barely ever used it after they set it up. You know what I mean? So I guess what do you think is the checklist to know if you're going to actually really go ahead and use that? Because a lot of people don't think about that. They think once I get the gym, I'm going to be working out every single day. And a lot of the times it doesn't really end up that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I think everyone should start relatively small. Well, I mean, I could actually recommend either way. You could either go in so deep financially that every time you walk out to the gym, you're hitting the face with what you're not doing. I like that approach. But at the same time, if you're kind of worried about it and money is scarce, then I would go on the, what's the smallest amount you can carve out in your garage? You get a bit of space. If that's one mat from Tractor Supply where that's your lifting platform and a barbell and some plates, then just see what you can get done with that and try and set up that consistent routine and see if it's something that you will stick with. Because I know a lot of people I don't even think about it. That's where I train and I train by myself. I have training partners over occasionally, but some people they need those, they need a training partner, and I training partners are great. I've had training partners all throughout my training career, but I think you need to realize and really think about how big of a piece for you is that when you train every day. Is it a social thing? Do you need that motivation? And just kind of being self-aware about who you are in other situations. Do you need accountability, or are you a self-starter?
For you personally, it sounds like you're motivated by the tinkering of it all. You're motivated by the programming, because I'm imagining that you're I'm going to try this and then I'm going to do this for 4 weeks and see how that turns out. So you're excited probably every time to work out, kind of regardless of the day. I'm sure some days more so than others, but in general, you'll probably usually excited because you're excited about the process of it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's 100%. I mean, I love programming and trying to see how far can I push it with this minimal equipment setup, and what is the top end for my strength and my conditioning simultaneously. How far can I go with just a good program? Because a big part of it is if you have 5 or 6 hours to train every day, I think the program is important, but not as important. If you only have literally an hour to train a few times a week, I really think that people should be putting their best foot forward in that time frame and making sure that they have a really well thought out program. And that's no different, than me at running a business. I have 3 kids, like I have a garage gym, but I don't spend, 3 or 4 hours training every day. I still only train an hour each day for the most part. And I just want that to be very effective and optimal.
It makes a lot of sense what you're saying there. And then it also kind of bleeds into some of the CrossFitters. Some of the CrossFitters are at this point professional athletes, and they can work out 3 times a day. They can kind of afford to do that. I know they have other responsibilities. They have other things going on as well. But for most people, that's not wise to work out that many times a day, unless it's for a specific goal, unless it's for a short period of time, because it could be too stressful, bouncing around from so many different things.
Yeah, I think, and that's something I've been preaching to our athletes over the last year, is this intensity wave that people want to be on. People want to hit it so hard, and they don't realize that there's a cost, not only, physiologically, but psychologically. Like, it's going to wear down your CNS, and like, you're not going to be as good of a dad, you're not going to be as good of a husband when you are training that hard all the time. And it's great. Like, if you're ambitious, that's awesome. You're type A, let's go get it. Let's crush it. But like, it's got to be on a limited basis. You can't go after it that hard every day and expect to live a normal life after that.
How about the type of training that you personally prefer? Because I believe you have a military background.
Yes, I do. So yeah, I flew for a little while in the military, and then transitioned. On my way out, I got an opportunity to work with special operations in a strength and conditioning capacity. I was a physical training leader and unit fitness program manager. What was cool is I got a lot of experience on how to apply some of my ideas to very large groups of people, and not only the motivated operators, but also the people who aren't so motivated in the military, because the military is just a cross section of society. And so I learned how to program workouts in a way where you can't really cheat them, and like there's always a little extra work for somebody. But what I ended up stumbling on, the type of training I love the most, is just concurrent training. I thought it was CrossFit. I thought I was going to like CrossFit. I dabbled in that for a while. But that intensity piece, Mark was talking about, like, I don't think long-term it's good. I think a lot of people might find that out the hard way. We've had a lot of athletes coming from that background come talk to us about their concerns and kind of recovering from stuff like that. But I think just really good strength programming combined with really good conditioning programming. When I say conditioning, I'm not talking about, CrossFit Metcons. Most of the time it's just, running, cycling, intervals, things like that to keep your conditioning at a really high level.
What are some of your goals that you have at the moment? Because I'd imagine that's a key component to the programming, especially that you're doing for yourself.
Yeah, my goals, I'm just always trying to stay ready to do things. I do a 100-mile bike race every year, which kind of started out of I wasn't prepared for that at all. So I did it to go see, meet myself is a term I use a lot. I like to meet who I really am. And so that's part of our training. And so I wasn't trained for that at all. And I went and did a 100-mile bike race. And so I'm just trying to prepare slightly for those things, but not be over prepared for them. But something I would say is kind of in my sights right now. There is a CrossFit style workout called Murph, where you run a mile, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, run a mile. I did that every Saturday for 2 years. And, I really like to push myself on Saturday. That's like my intensity day for the most part. And so there's been some recent conversations about who has the fastest time in the world and stuff. And I would like to take a shot at that in the fall of this year. So I just finished my second year in February. Now I've kind of taken some time off. And then I'm like, you know what? All right, I'll go for it. I'll see how fast I can do this thing.
What is the best time and who has it?
It's really it's heavily disputed right now. I think in competition, it's close to 34 minutes. So 33, 34 minutes. And then there's multiple ways you can break the workout down and stuff and do it. But that's the fastest recorded time, in a competition setting.
By Fraser or Froning or something like that?
It was Josh Bridges.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that workout's brutal.
The volume just stresses me out just thinking.
Yeah, it's a dirty one. It gets to you.
So this this conversation is going to impact a lot of people, because there are people that are, they're in a slump right now because the gym's been taken away. There's a lot of lack of motivation right now. So as someone who is always motivated to work out at home, and somebody who probably has helped others find, some inspiration to work out at home, what's some of the best advice that you've been either given or some that you have given out for getting people to stay motivated at home?
I think it kind of depends on what type of person you are. I think some people need to it might feel or seem like you don't need to be super organized right now or super scheduled, because whatever, you're just at home and things are normal. But I think that you need to do the opposite of that. I think you need to write down exactly what you're going to do today at what times and what your goals are for that day, and get more militant, get more structured, because you need that structure to carry you through these really difficult times. And I've been just telling our athletes over and over again, there are 3 habits I want everybody to go after every single day. And the first one is hormesis. So what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. For most of us, that's just training. How can we stress our body a little bit and make it better? That could also be using a sauna, ice bath, something like that. Hormesis is the first thing. One thing is like, what's pushing you forward? What's your motivation? And then the third thing is a hard thing. So we have all of our athletes do a hard thing each day. And we I kind of put a formula together for what a hard thing actually is. And a hard thing, because, I could put a rock in my shoe and walk around today. That's going to be hard, no pun intended. That's going to be a hard thing for me to do, but it's stupid, right? There's no reason for you to really do that. So the hard thing that we have is pushing forward against your own desire, something you don't want to do, plus daily over decades equals a hard thing. So when you're doing something that's going to push forward against your natural desire, you don't want to do it. That's initially hard. But to make sure that it's something you should be doing, is it something that you could do every day for 10 years? That's going to, have an impact. So for a lot of people, once we put in that, okay, what's it going to look like over a decade and what's against your desire? Now we're like, okay, it's a 30-minute walk today. That's simple, right? But that could be your hard thing. And for everybody, it's going to be different. But I think pursuing one hard thing every single day through that lens is really important.
It's something that's difficult, but also towards your goals, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So like I mentioned, you could do you could do really hard workout today and call that your hard thing, but you're not going to be able to do that every single day. And I don't think, one thing here and there is what adds up to a successful person. It's these, this consistency over time, over that decade, over 2 decades, that really builds the person into someone better.
And I think a way that people can build this is, Louis Simmons with the West Side Barbell Method, he has a lot of really good points when it comes to the max effort work. And when he talks about PRs, there's so many different ways to get a PR. I mean, there could be hundreds of different ways to get a bench press PR. Even if you're just bench pressing and you're not adding bands, you're not adding chains, you're not adding boards, you could still potentially do a close grip bench. You could do a wide grip bench. You could have a 3-rep max, a 6-rep max, an 8-rep max, a paused max. You could pause the weight on your chest for 4 seconds. That can be a max. So something that might motivate some of the people listening and might get them excited is, and this gets to be something that you need to learn as you're training for a while, you can audible to some of these different things if things aren't feeling great. So if you're going to try a 1-rep max in the bench press for the day, if that's what's on plan and scheduled to do, but something's not feeling right, maybe you can do the best you've ever done before for 3 sets of 3, or maybe you can do maybe there's some other option that you can kind of lean into that would be slightly different, but it keeps you motivated. Anytime that you're able to surpass things that you did previously makes you feel amazing. I know for me, I've been really excited because I've been running, and I have these different points that I run to around here, and I'm like, oh, okay, I did that in 5 minutes. Okay, I did that in 8 minutes, and I can see that I got better than last time. And it doesn't matter that I suck at running. What matters is that I'm getting better at it, and it feels great. And I've been doing the same thing with push-ups. I was able to do 85 push-ups the other day. I'd like to be able to do 100 in a row. Things like that. They're exciting, and it could be stuff they haven't even ever tried before, and that's a record in and of itself. You could just say, I want to see how many body weight squats in a row I can do. and maybe you do 100, and then next time you try to do it, you do 110 and so on. But that will keep you motivated.
Yeah, I think those micro PRs are really important in like every aspect of our life, right? The only thing that I know in business, like it can just weigh on you, everything. Like if you're always trying to outdo yourself essentially in business, and it's like, okay, well, did we have a better customer experience this time? Or did we PR the customer experience? That's something that's really awesome. That's something we should look at, and not always be looking at, revenue or all these other metrics. Like what's one part of this that we can make better? I think in business and life and training, that's great advice.
I still really love that hard thing aspect that you mentioned, because you mentioned walking for 30 minutes, right? Like walking is something that we talk a lot about on this podcast, because it helps individuals build the habit of not being sedentary. But the fact that you can call that a hard thing, I do agree, because it's out of habit. A lot of us live sitting down, work sitting down, etc. So walking just seems like a waste of time. But, to build that habit for a majority of the population, including ourselves, that's a really, 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 really beneficial thing.
Yeah. And let's be honest. We all of us sitting here, we like to train. But if I were to just say, if you ask me, okay, what was your hard thing today? And I've already trained. And I was like, well, I trained today. That's a lie. I absolutely love training. Like if that's all I could do, like I would just train. Like I just love doing it. I have to actually like restrict myself in that regard sometimes. And so to say that that's my hard thing today because it's hard for other people, it's not true, but slowing myself down and like going on basically like a walking meditation type, that's hard for me to do. And so that is a hard thing for me. And so that's kind of why I bring it up, because everybody's hard thing is going to be a little bit different. And just because you're accustomed to doing something that's really hard for other people doesn't mean it's hard for you. Maybe your hard thing is something else. Maybe your hard thing is disconnecting from your phone and playing with your kids. That everyone has a different hard thing that they need to embrace. It's just a matter of finding it.
For David Goggins, working hard would be for him to probably like meditate.
Right.
And meanwhile, when he's running, you think, oh, what a badass he is, but that's not hard for him. It's become easy. His body has adapted to it. He's gotten used to it. We saw Hafthor Bjornsson, deadlift over 1,100 pounds.
Yeah.
For him to deadlift 900 pounds, which probably under 50 people, maybe around 50 people or so in the history of the world have deadlifted 900 plus pounds. But for him, that's not hard. He might even be able to do it for, a handful of reps, maybe even more. Who knows? But I always found it interesting. I always felt like hard work is a misconception. When I was powerlifting and lifting some of the weights, I think people would think, oh, that's so badass. And I'm like, no, what would actually be badass and would be more admirable is if I took my ass to the library.
Right.
Because that's where I don't want to go. And I don't enjoy reading. But if I forced myself to read and had the discipline to do something like that, that would be me really expanding myself, me just continually piling up points at something that I'm already good at. Is fun and it's amusing and it's interesting to me and it makes me happy. But it might not be the best thing to always hone in and focus on. And it's definitely not hard. It's fun.
Yeah, and like do you feel that challenge? Because I actually write these things down every day. What's my hormesis for the day? What's my hard thing? What's my one thing? And that's how I developed or like not developed, but like realized that training. I used to put like when I first started that, I'd be like, yeah, training, my hard thing today. And then I'm like, you're not challenged. You're not like trying to get better at something. You're not learning new material here. This is truly not, you're like, it's kind of a cop out answer. And then once I finally realized that, I'm like, okay, where can I go from here to get better?
Yeah, can you tell us about the concept of like killing comfort? Like, does that kind of just come from more of like all this right here that we've been talking about?
Yeah, it's a lot of this. So Killing Comfort is a book I just finished that comes out later this month. But the whole idea, because like the subtitle of the book is The Prerequisite to Extraordinary Results. Because everyone has this great like idea for a new habit strategy or like something that you can do here. But like none of that matters. None of it matters unless you can just get good at killing a little bit of comfort each day. Mm-hmm. And going back to that hard thing. This is going to be so different for so many different people. But the whole book stemmed from, and it's not just for people getting into things, but when I started training people very early on, I realized like some people I was doing remote coaching and they would pay the monthly fee and not do what I said, and I'm like, this is weird. Cause I had just come from a community of like type A badasses and fighter pilots who like just do everything they say that they're going to do. And then I transitioned to coaching and it was like, I don't know, like 60-40, 60% of the people are going to do it. 40% were just like, I'm like, I'm not comfortable like with you paying me if you're not going to do what you say, if you're not going to do any of this stuff. And so that just triggered something in my brain that I've been obsessed with is like, why do some people do and some people don't? And how can I help the people who don't become the people who do? And so that's kind of where all this started several years ago, is like just diving into different studies and research on like, what makes us complacent? What makes us comfortable? How does this sneak up on us? And how do we start to kill some of that complacency or comfort little by little to try and get better?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is just your interest level. Hopefully, and then trying to tie the interest to a bunch of facts. Okay, you said you want to be in better shape, you said you wanted abs, and now you're off on the weekend drinking and doing these other things. That shows that the interest level wasn't quite there. But let's figure out ways of chipping away at it, because you can get better. You can build up your discipline. You can. I know for me, with like say something like a ketogenic diet, I would allow myself to eat some carbohydrates or something off the diet every like third day when I first started, and then it was every 7 days. And I was like, well, now I'm just kind of loading up for that one day, and I'm turning that into like an event rather than just a meal. And then I started to learn, over a period of time, no, this is what you want to lean into. This is where you want to go. You said that you want to be in better shape, so let's keep going that way. And it took a while. I had to mess up a bunch of times. I had to enjoy the comfort along the way here and there, to understand like what I really wanted out of it.
Yeah. And that's, you're talking about small things. That's what that was one thing I stumbled across in coaching people is I would like, if I found out I got a person who honestly wanted these results, but they don't have that sticking power, they're not ready for that yet, then I would just throw, and this was hard for me, just coming from my background, like everything to me is a mathematical problem that can be solved, and it took a lot of like, understanding the human side of things. It might be, a little bit easier for other people, but I had to break it down and really understand different forms of human behavior. But I got into like, okay, I don't care about what you're eating right now or the program. Like, I just need you to do one thing for the next week until we talk again. And I almost don't care what it is. And I don't care if you're losing weight or what you've changed, because I would give them something so small, it would basically be impossible for them to not do. And then after they accomplish it that first week, okay, the next week we're going to do something, small, but move you in the right direction. And when I started working with people who don't stick to things as well like that, the timeline's a lot longer, but their success was a lot greater.
So you're saying that their success was greater by like doing one small thing for a little bit, then adding one small thing on top of that, rather than giving them all the things that they needed to do? Exactly.
Yeah, because I think a lot of this kind of is mathematical. If you say that you want to get stronger and you guys want to, tell me how to, like, you just give me the program and you're like, eat this and lift this, do this program, you'll get stronger. Yeah, I bet you with like 99% certainty, whatever you tell me to do will work, barring some sort of weird genetic, thing. But if they're not sticking to it, like, what's the small thing that I can give you? What's this tiny next behavior we can do that's going to move you towards being able to do this full program and changing the diet? Because that's all, I call it the full overhaul, right? Like, everyone gets excited, or they watch a documentary or listen to a podcast and they want to just like, let's go, balls to the wall. We're changing everything on Monday. Like, how about you, instead of that, how about we just change, instead of waiting until Monday, first off, let's do it today, and let's be really, really tiny thing and do that, for a week or two and see how you feel after that.
What are some of those smaller things that you would have people do?
Yeah. So, it could be a very small thing depending on the individual, but if it was cutting something out of the diet, maybe they drink soda, and you're like, stop doing that. We'll talk next week. Like, I'm paying for this. Be like, trust me, Like it's gonna work. And if that's all they have to focus on, it's hard for them to not do. And other people, it could just be getting consistent. Like, I just need you to go do the warm up today. I'm sure you've heard that like tip. It's like when people are not motivated, like I just tell people to go do the warm up today. That's all for the rest of this week. All I want you to do is do the warm up I have programmed for you. I don't care about the rest of the training. And then they get in there, they do the warm up, and they're like, well, hell, I'm already in here. I'm warmed up. I'm going to do the rest of the training. Like, of course you are, but even if you only did the warm up, at least you're starting to build some sort of behavioral change in activity by doing something every day when you report back next week.
Kind of reminds me of Rob and Dana Lynn Bailey. They started a clothing company years ago called Flag Nor Fail. And Rob Bailey shared a really cool story with us. And he basically said that the reason why he started Flag Nor Fail and what it meant to him and what it represented when he saw the writing on his own shirt in the mirror was just this idea of like, don't fuck up today. Like, just don't quit. Just don't surrender, which is a different message than go out there and kill the day. You got to go out there and destroy the day, which destroying the day and killing the day. And those things can be great when you're ahead, but when you're behind and you don't feel great about yourself and you have a lot of self-doubt, I think coming from that other side makes it seem like a mountain that you could at least start to climb rather than just looking up at this giant mountain going, I'm never going to make it over that mountain. I'm never going to make it over that other one. I'm not worth a shit. And I really liked his message there. And it sounds a little bit to me, some of what you're talking about sounds similar, and you're kind of chipping away at some of these things that are uncomfortable over a period of time. Maybe they become more comfortable, and then you have to try to find some new stuff to stimulate you. But I think a lot of people are, giving themselves a lot of anxiety, thinking of the stuff that they don't have. They don't know how to get it. They're not sure how to get there. And I think if you dial it back a bunch and just say, just don't give up. Whatever it is that you're trying, try it to the best of your degree that you can. And like you're saying, I really love the message of just try to only take on one thing at a time.
Yeah. And then detach from that outcome that you actually want. Just try and put in that small amount of work on that one thing that you've decided to do. And that's it. Like, let's just work on getting some basics of blocking and tackling here before we move to winning the Super Bowl. Let's get some real small stuff dialed in, because a lot of people, where they're getting their information, it's from these titans, who have done a lot of great things. People like yourself, people like David Goggins, people like Jocko Willink. And these people are just larger than life, but it's like then you start putting yourself in that context and you do start to feel like a failure no matter how good you've done that day. And that's not what anyone needs to focus on. You only need to focus on your next step and what that process is for you. Don't worry about who you're going to become, because I can guarantee if you put a couple good habits in your life and you do them daily over decades, you'll be surprised who you are at the end. But it's that decades part that really gets people down, that they don't want to focus on, but that's the reality of it.
You said a key word in there, detach. What did you mean by that?
It's just like only focus on the work itself. Like if I want to have the world's fastest Murph time in the fall, I can't just go train every day thinking about that and going full intensity of like doing the workout. Like, I'm just going to focus on doing 1,000 push-ups over the course of the next 7 days and make sure that they're really good form. Like, I'm going to forget about that. What's going on later this year, I'm just going to focus on really good form on my push-ups to make sure that I'm as prepared as I can be, and just forget about what's going on down the road, because it's coming. You're doing everything you can to set yourself up for that good situation later, but you don't need to be thinking about it all the time. It's just going to cause you stress and anxiety, shoot up your cortisol levels. It's going to jack up your entire health. So let's just chill and focus on what you're doing right now.
It's more of a math equation.
Yeah, exactly.
You can solve it with facts.
Yeah. You put in the equation of doing each little task every single day, and you're going to get better.
Is that kind of how you, how you approach all your big goals? You know exactly what you're going to do, and then you kind of formulate all the little things you have to do to get there. You set that all in line for yourself?
Yeah. So each area of my life, whether that's how I'm operating as a dad, financial goals, business goals, training goals. I always try and zoom out to as far as I can for that given goal, as long as it makes sense. So maybe that's 10 years out, and then I'll go to, okay, what's going on in 5 years to keep track on that 10 year. And then I go down. I try to go as small as I can. And then once that's all like written out, maybe I spend some time doing this one day, I'm just going to kind of move all of that big picture stuff off to the side. And I'm like, okay, I know when I was putting this plan together, it all lined up. It was a linear progression from daily action to what's happening 10 years from now, but I don't need to worry about all this stuff right now. And then I can do a check-in, once a year, once every 6 months or something to make sure I'm still on track, but I don't need the stress of like all the things I'm trying to achieve. And I can just focus on, hey, this is based off of what you did put together. Here's what you should be doing this week.
How are you able to manage time with the family, training, business, everything? Like, I'm always fascinated by dudes with families, because I think about like my small family, our podcast and stuff, and I'm like, fuck, man, there's not enough time in the day. And then someone like you comes along, and I'm like, how does this guy do it? So I'm always fascinated.
I would say it's probably just limited distractions. Like I don't really do anything else other than the things that you just mentioned. Like I train, I hang out with my family, and I work. I fit in some friends and family time here and there, but I just don't have really any other hobbies. That's like the true answer to that question. But I've just been super structured with my time, because that's what I had to do. This company started as a side hustle, and so when I got home from work, I had to work. On the side hustle. And then I have 3 kids now. My time with them is very important. So my day ends at 4:30, no matter what. Like that's when my day is over. It doesn't matter what I have going on. That's my wife's expectation. I work from home. So like she will walk in here at 4:30 if I'm not done, so like work becomes a game for me. I have from when I start till 4:30. If I can't fit everything in that time frame, then I kind of failed that day, and so that's just what you have to do. Get really militant and know what you want. So I know when I train every single day. I know when my family time is. I know what I'm working on, and I just execute and limit distractions as much as possible.
Now, I wanted to know this because on your Instagram, like it says you guys, or your team, I don't know how many people are also on your team, is working with thousands of people. A lot of individuals, especially with what's going on right now, they can't train people in gyms, and they realize, especially trainers realize kind of how fickle that job is. If anything does happen, they're out, right? So they're trying to transition to working with individuals remotely. What are some big things that you think trainers are missing out on in terms of skills needed to motivate individuals remotely, get them success remotely without having to be with them in person?
Yeah. And so there are 6 people on my team, and that's 100% what makes this possible, everything that we are doing and being able to work with that many athletes. But I think, and we've been working remotely for so long, we have kind of taken it for granted on all the things that we do. But I think a couple things that coaches need to get better at is the mindset piece of things, and how to communicate the sticking power, and build a better relationship with your clients, however that's going to happen. Whether that's through text message, a Zoom call, you have to build that relationship. That's still paramount in coaching. That relationship is paramount. And then I think programming is a really big deal, and I don't mean being really crazy with your programming and constantly trying to be creative to where that people never know what they're going to get, but just you really like that. If that's all they get to see first, like if your workouts, like our workouts load for our athletes on Sunday morning and they all check it, that we have to put our best foot forward in our programming, making sure that we're asking them the right questions, and we're hyper focused on recovery and making sure their life is balanced through different parameters. And that's all very apparent in our programming because it's all right there. So making sure people are focused, they have proper tutorials for everything, and you're still building that relationship. So really, relationships and programming, I think, is what you really need to focus on if you're going to go remote.
You had some friends that maybe made fun of you in the past for training in your garage, and now they're like, "Hey, can I come over and hit a workout up with you?"
Yeah, I mean that's kind of been the whole gist of this journey, man. It wasn't when I was getting involved in garage gyms. I mean, Rogue was just kind of coming online, like they weren't a big company, and you had to pay a lot for shipping with any of them. And so like, I'm going through forums to buy barbells and bumper plates and things like this. And I built my own rings, and people laugh at like, you built your own rings. It's so ridiculous. You can get rings for so cheap. I'm like, well, they were like $200, when I was doing this stuff, just for some basic, like I want to do dips on rings. And so, yeah. And now it's becoming more and more commonplace. And I think with the recent pandemic stuff, like it's just going to become more commonplace. Cause even if you go to the gym, I still think everyone should have some sort of fitness setup at home because of, I didn't used to say because of a pandemic. I used to say because of things like Christmas and Thanksgiving and all these things that do happen in our lives that might keep us home more than we expected. That way we can still train. But now, hell, man, yeah, I think everyone should have at least a minimal setup in their garage so they can hit up something no matter what happens.
We've heard so many times over the years, it's hard for me to train because I have kids, and the gym down the street doesn't have daycare and stuff like that. It's like, well, now, your kids could be, in the other room, and you can be training, and you could still be looking after them if that's necessary, if they're young enough for that. And you just kind of bulletproof your life, and I think that that's an important thing to do just in general anyway. You shouldn't really need anyone or need anything. It's having some family around you is certainly helpful. It's no one really gets through life on their own 100%, but you shouldn't really be relying on so many other things. And I think this is something that this situation has kind of taught us. Like maybe people were a little too reliant on the gym always being there. Maybe they're too. I mean, the way that gyms are from the time that I grew up versus the way they are now is just it's hard for me to wrap my mind around, because gyms used to be very, very expensive, and rightfully so. They got so much. How do they have that much equipment? They got every piece of equipment you can imagine under the sun. And they used to be, kind of more of a minimum of like $50-$60 a month. Now you see sometimes they're like $10 a month.
Right.
I can't make any sense of that. But I think, this is probably like a reset button on the fitness industry a little bit. You're going to see more, more people getting home equipment. As we've seen over the last couple of years, a lot of people getting more, or starting their own gyms even, so we'll probably kind of continue to see that trend. CrossFit kind of kicked that off, I believe. But I think Gold's Gym is like filing for bankruptcy, last I heard. And who knows if that means that that's the end of them or not. But yeah, it definitely looks like the fitness industry is going to take a giant shift here coming up.
Yeah, and I'm kind of looking forward to the shift, man. I mean, I don't wish any bad thing on any business owner at any point. I mean, I hope that Gold's recovers and they come back stronger. But I think, like you said, maybe we were too reliant on the coach putting together the perfect program for us at the CrossFit gym. We're always having 24-hour access and working out these weird times, and maybe we need to realize that we need to take control a little bit more, because that's the unfortunate thing I'm starting to realize. Like my wife and I are basically obsessed with health and fitness. Like it's what we talk about. That's what and it's not normal. We're definitely not normal, but that just happens to be what we're interested in. And sometimes we're like no wonder, no wonder other people are in a worse off situation with their health or their weight or whatever, because, luckily whatever happened genetically to me, I became super interested in that stuff at an early age, and I've been obsessed with it. But I feel like today, if you don't have the guards up, if you're not learning new things about health and fitness, like you're going to walk into a lot of traps that you didn't want to, and you're going to end up gaining weight because you just had bad information. It wasn't you didn't do anything wrong necessarily. You just had bad information, or you were going off of what a high school gym teacher told you, and it just isn't right anymore. There's a lot of things that play into that, but you really have to take more ownership of your health and fitness these days.
Yeah, I agree. Ignorance is only going to last so long. Some people are like, well, that's not fair to say because some people don't know. They kind of know. They at least halfway know. I mean, people knew that cigarettes weren't great for you before there was research behind them to show that putting smoke into your lungs is not a great idea. Right?
yeah, I mean, I think that's what I'm always looking out for is like, what are we doing today that in 50 or 60 years is just going to seem ludicrous, you know, because right now you smoke a cigarette, or if I was like just smoking right now, you guys might be like, what are you doing, dude? Are you like, you all right? Like, yeah, okay. But that was back then, you know, whatever, 60 years ago, maybe 70, smoking, they just thought it was no big deal. It's smoke passing in and out of my lungs. Like, it's not a problem. And then, you know, we started to catch up scientifically. What are we doing today? That's the exact same thing. Like, I have some theories or ideas about what we could be doing. That's probably bad for us, but you know, that's what I'm always looking at. I'm like, there's something like, you know, we think we got it all figured out, but I guarantee there's something we're just doing every single day. That's like in 50 years, you know, my grandkids are going to be like, really? You did that every day? I'm like, yeah, no one even thought about it.
Yeah. My brother and I talked about that. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just curious. What are some of those things that you've been thinking about that you think, okay, this is kind of weird?
Yeah, I think, you know, just to put it in like a big, broad term would be our devices. Like, I think there's a lot of emerging research, and they're in the, is it correlation or causation, like, debate, but the impact of high screen time usage, like 3-4 hours a day, and the association with suicide rates and depression is very alarming. And, you know, everyone's afraid to be like, yeah, no, it's your phone. That's why people are committing suicide at higher rates today. No one will say that yet. And that's okay. I don't even know either. I'm just saying, like, that's one theory I think is like, maybe my kids, they won't even think it's cool to have a phone that can do all this stuff. They're like, why would I want to be so connected? Like, why would I want to have my neck bent down with my thumbs flying for 6 hours? That doesn't make sense, Dad. Like, that's dumb. You know, I think that's one small thing that might not be such a good idea later, and I don't think we're going to realize it for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think if you put that in combination with other things, then you know, you're really starting to look at a country that's set up for illness. You know, you start to have, my brother and I have talked about this before on a more broad, with a more broader subject, but just with carbs. Like, we were just kind of kidding, but we saw someone smoking, and as we went past them, I didn't say anything to them. Obviously, we were in a car, and I just said to my brother, I was like, isn't that weird? Like, people still do that. And then we were talking about, like, I wonder if that'll ever be the case with processed foods. Like, oh my God, you see that person? Like, they were eating a donut. Like, that's weird. You know, I think we live in a free country, and people should be allowed to do what they want, and they should be allowed to select their level of harm at their leisure, really. But it is an interesting thing. Like, the more knowledge that we have, maybe those things will be reduced a little bit. I mean, I don't think that, you know, eating a donut is necessarily an unhealthy thing to do here and there. But the point is like, you know, maybe people will start to really value nutrition and say, hey, like, you know, we shouldn't be doing that too often, you know?
Yeah. And I think, you know, Jerry Seinfeld has a really, like, kind of like a funny observation, you know, I mean, that's what Jerry Seinfeld does, but he mentions if an alien were to come to this planet and see us walking behind another animal, and the animal taking a crap, and we were picking it up and putting it into bags, he's like, who would the alien think is in charge? We're like picking up this feces and carrying it for them. Like, obviously the dog is in charge, right? Because like, we're carrying its crap around. And I think the same thing is true if an alien were to come down and see someone eating a really clean whole foods diet versus someone eating super processed foods diet that we now have research on that says, you know, it's worse for you. You'll eat more. It's going to make you obese, lead to all these health problems. And, you know, the alien would be like, well, you must be forced to eat that food because it wouldn't make any other sense. And most of the time the answer is either they didn't have the education on why, or it's financials, you know, like they couldn't afford the whole food stuff. And so they ate the worst thing. They didn't want to make the uncomfortable choice of cutting out the, you know, ESPN or whatever out of their budget and have those whole foods. But it's crazy, man. If we were to get an outside creature to come look at us, they'd be like, what the hell? Like, I don't understand some of the decisions you guys are making.
Well, we may even feed our pets more responsibly than we feed our children, because with a pet, someone's like, oh, you know, the dog only eats like twice a day.
Right.
And it's like, well, why does the dog only eat twice a day? Well, I don't want the dog to get fat and sick. Like, well, why does your kid eat 17 times a day?
That's 100% true.
Yeah. What's your diet like these days?
Yeah. So I've been down a lot of different rabbit holes on the diet. So I went paleo about 10 years ago, and then from paleo started kind of reintroducing I'd say more moderate carbohydrates after that, and then still wasn't doing well with the higher carb, and then I went fully keto this was a year or two ago, but I just didn't do real well on keto, but it led me down this rabbit hole of just like how our body uses fuel at different times. So if it's super high intensity, your body prefers sugar. If it's more low intensity, it prefers, fats to burn. And then I kind of started to eat based off of that data, like personal data. Like if I'm going to have a heavy or high intensity training session, I just eat more carbohydrates in preparation for that. And if I have a lower intensity day, I eat a lot less carbohydrates. And it was a conversation I had with Rob Wolf that kind of made me realize that, because when I went keto, and the reason it didn't work for me is like I was trying basally like no carbs. I was like at 10 grams of carbs a day, and like that whole they're like no, just give it time. Like the time never came because I was training too hard. Like the intensity was not there. I did not feel like myself for a very long time. And then I got some pea strips and everything else, and like I could go up to like 100 grams of carbs or a little bit over a day and still be in ketosis. And he's like, yeah, dude, like you're super low body fat, you're training a lot, like. He's like, you're still kind of keto. It's just a higher carb keto. And so I think I fluctuate probably in and out of ketosis throughout the week based off of my training schedule. But what I eat is a lot of just whole foods, we don't have a lot of processed things or any processed things in our house really. So fruits, vegetables, meat, some starchy carbs, like sweet potatoes and stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah. All roads always lead back to Rob Wolf for some reason.
Yeah, he was a major part of my journey early on. I read his book, The Paleo Solution, and that was probably the biggest shift for me. Because prior to that, I mean, nutrition was still important, but I had taken I was like in a more bodybuilding, like chicken and rice type everyday mentality. I didn't really care. It was more of like a macronutrient thing, right? I didn't really care what I was eating. Like broccoli didn't make sense to me because it didn't have a lot of macros in it. Like there weren't a lot of calories there. And he kind of changed some of my perception early on with that book, and to where I was really just like, okay, this makes sense. Like let's eat like fruits and vegetables and some meat. Like that all makes sense to me, and it kind of has ever since.
Yeah, I think when it comes to nutrition, a big truth of it that no one wants to admit is like the book of nature, the book of nutrition has already been written, and it doesn't need to be tampered with any further. The foods that we're meant to eat, they're pretty obvious. There's different types of meat, there's fruit, there's vegetables, and then once you start getting beyond that, then it's kind of hard to maybe pick and choose each thing versus a tuber versus a grain and so on. But for the most part, if you stick to the things that were put on this earth for us to eat, that we didn't have to mess with too much to produce, but I don't think you can really go wrong. I don't really think that you can get fat off of those foods unless they're highly processed and mixed together with a bunch of other ingredients.
Yeah. And they did a study in like in a ward like last year, the year before, where they had the two groups of people, like the processed food and the unprocessed and the whole food people, and they let them eat like unregulated and just see what happened. And like, you can eat whatever you want, like, but every time you come to like get more food from us, we're going to give you fruits, vegetables, meat, like very basic stuff. And then the other group would, I don't know exactly what it was, but like a Twinkie or whatever processed food, and they ate like significantly more because they didn't feel fulfilled from that kind of diet. As we all know, that's not very fulfilling. And they ended up with a lot worse blood markers and everything else. And it was like the other group just kind of regulated themselves, and they lost a bunch of body fat, and but they were allowed to eat as much as they want whenever they were hungry. And it still wasn't a problem.
You were talking about eating at or having your carbohydrates or something like that, or your diet is a reflection of your activity on a certain day. And you probably work with a lot of individuals that do not necessarily CrossFit, but CrossFit type work. I know that in the past within the CrossFit community, like they would eat a lot of carbs because of the demands of their sport. Do you feel that is still somewhat necessary for what they do, or could they get away with your type of approach?
Yeah, so I think you'll find out real fast, especially if you eat a lot of carbohydrates and sugar, because we can store carbohydrates in our muscles and liver as glycogen, right? But we don't really know how full our glycogen stores are at any given point. That's the confusing part. But I realize with me, like, they're not super full. For lack of a scientific term, like if I go all out intensity, it's only about 20 or 30 minutes later to where I realize I am out of power. It's gone. But if I were to be eating a lot of carbohydrates for several days in a row, I really feel like they've been kind of like topped off, and I'm never going to hit that lull. But I think that people should experiment and not just be like, I'm going high intensity tomorrow, a lot of carbohydrates today. I would go just go try workout fasted at whatever intensity you were going to hit it at anyway, and see what happens. And if you never quote unquote bonk or run out of energy, your diet's probably fine. You don't need to have this pasta carb load before your 12-minute Metcon. That's ridiculous. You have plenty of fuel stored in your body to handle most anything. It's when you get outside of that. And I think a lot of people take nutritional, I've done these 100-mile bike races where it's necessary for me to fuel during, and it makes sense. But I'm also aware of when that's happening and not getting ridiculous with it. And I think people are taking that kind of sports science, like these multi-hour long events, and trying to put it in their life for a 30 or 40-minute workout. It's like, dude, you're fine. Drink a little bit of water, have some coffee, and go hit the training session. I guarantee everything's going to work out.
Gotcha.
Jerred, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Where can people find your book that you already have out, and where can people find your upcoming book?
Yeah, so if you go to garagegymathlete.com, you can learn more about our training and find the Garage Gym Athlete book. And then the new book, you can go to killingcomfort.com and get that. It'll be on Amazon and everything else. And then if you are a nerd like me and you like programming and stuff, the third website is endof3fitness.com, where we've really kind of started to put some of our methodology and things out there so people can nerd out on it. And it's not for everyone, but something I love.
Do you know Joel Jameson at all?
I'm aware of who he is, but we've never spoken before.
Yeah, I should connect you guys. I think you guys would get along. I mean, he's very deep into programming, but you might have to go for a ride in his helicopter. I don't know if you're cool with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a few helicopter rides. Just look at his credentials, make sure he's all good. After Kobe, man, I just
yeah, I know it's a little scary, right?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I come from the aviation world, and I'm like, if I'm getting in an aircraft with you, you better be more trained than I ever was.
Have you been having an opportunity to watch The Last Dance at all?
No, I haven't.
The Michael Jordan documentary. You should check it out. We've been digging it a lot. We've been talking about it on almost every show. I think they're on episode 6, but it will give you some good binge watching.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff posted about it, and I need to dive into it.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
And my microphone is off. That was cool, man. Cool I think stuff, a lot of people are gonna really dig that.
Really like his approach. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. He had a lot of great advice. I loved it.
His approach to habit change was something I really like too. Because you can set out, you can have exactly what you think a person needs to do to be able to get to their goal. You can have all the steps, but if you give them everything at once, it's going to be very hard for them to digest it all. His approach of giving someone one task a week to try to do, try not drinking soda this week, try walking for 10 minutes a day this week, those things add up over time. That's a really good approach for all of us to take.
Well, I think some people that do online coaching are really smart. And Nsima, I know that you have phone calls and set up and you communicate with people a lot. And I think that this is about so much more than just your training and just your food. If it was about training and food, they probably wouldn't ever contact you, because training can be overwhelming if you're brand new to it. But really, you can kind of just figure some of it out. You can kind of mess around with it and have some ups and downs. But really, these are people that are struggling in other areas to really connect the dots. Maybe they don't want to spend time doing it. Maybe it's a student. Maybe it's somebody who has a job and a family, and they don't want to try to figure it all out. And on the flip side of it, maybe it's just somebody who just has never had discipline in that area, or maybe they're just not interested. They don't care to learn a ton about nutrition. They just want to be in better shape. But the story is that, if you don't have the knowledge, then it's hard to know why you're doing something. It's a really gigantic factor in motivation is the principle of awareness. If you're not aware of why you're doing something, but even if you just have a brief understanding, like if you just tell me, Mark, like, you told me you have a history of going back for seconds, and that's why I need you to weigh your food, right? Even that amount of information is enough. Like, weigh your food, as James Smith said the other day, he said, track it before you eat it, right? These little simple tools, these little simple rules can be things that stick with you forever, and you don't have to really have a massive knowledge. You just need to know that's the right thing to do because it matches up with my goals for the moment, and that should be enough motivation for you to stick to it.
Yeah. Just like
thing.
Mobility and
no, go ahead.
Yeah, just like mobility. Like the way I look at mobility is when I don't do mobility enough, I start to feel pain. As my lower back starts to hurt. My body starts to feel rigid and I can't move well. So that's my motivation for doing mobility and being mobile, because I don't feel pain. I just move really, really well. So it's really that simple.
It's that Ron Penna speech. I don't like stretching, but he hates stretching, but he hates being in pain 10 times worse. He hates going to bed early, but he hates missing an opportunity because he's fatigued or he's tired, right? Mm-hmm. Like that was hilarious. And it was like, I think that gave us all really good perspective. It was good to hear somebody say it that way. I think it's easier to come from that side, as I was mentioning with Rob Bailey. Like, he's just looked at his own shirt and he's like, just don't suck today. That's a way different responsibility than saying, Andrew, you got to go out there and you got to whoop everybody's ass today. You got to beat everybody that you got to kick all their asses, but it's just like, hey man, just do the best you can today and don't be a pussy. Like, that's an easier message to follow, right?
Yeah. A way easier pill to swallow for sure. A much easier way to put points on the scoreboard. And that's what it seemed like, with the do one hard thing, it's like, hey, like, if you're struggling right now, you have no points on the scoreboard. Let's hit a couple singles and then get some momentum going. And I love that. Go for a walk. Okay, boom, you're on base now. Let's see what happens tomorrow or the next time you're up at bat.
I like that a lot. The hormesis, the one hard thing, and what's pushing you forward. Like, just having those things up on a board or something that's a really good idea. I think I want to implement that. And
I think everybody listening, is capable, is plenty capable, not just capable of doing what he suggested, but they're capable of setting themselves up in a position where these things are easier. Like, do one hard thing. Like, I actually think that I'm pretty lazy. Somebody might look at, maybe because of the posts that they see on Instagram, it's a lot of like training or something like that, or I don't know, they might associate some other things with me not being lazy. But I got to tell you guys, I talk myself out of like diving on the couch pretty much all day long. I talk myself out of eating pizza all day long. I have to talk myself out of it all day. And it's actually kind of funny to have to think about the couch, because I don't even know if I've ever sat on that couch. I'm like always standing or trying to move around, just because I know that if I do that my mind is going to wander and I'm going to end up being a couch potato and I'm going to end up sitting there. But I have to I'm kind of in constant conflict with all these things. But luckily, I have enough interest in exercising and in moving and in getting outside. I know that a walk is going to make me feel better. I know that the sun's going to make me feel better. I know that if I go downstairs and move around the dumbbells a little bit, if I put on the weight vest and go hit the stairs, I do know that it's going to be difficult, but I know that what's on the other side is going to make me feel really, really good. It's going to make me feel accomplished for the day. So anyone who's like, man, I don't know about that hard thing, like it's kind of hard to do the hard thing, as he said, sometimes he encourages people just to warm up. just go warm up, and then you know that you're going to do something harder. That's what I find myself doing on these runs. I'm like, man, I ran yesterday. I did the stairs yesterday. I can kind of sell myself this story. Oh, you worked hard yesterday. You can chill for today. But as soon as I go on one of these walks, I'm like, there's no reason why I can't run this hill. There's no reason why I can't sprint this hill. There's no reason why I can't do this. There's no reason I can't do that. Next thing you know, I'm working out for like 2 hours straight.
Yeah, I've seen you do that where you just trick yourself into working out way more. Because same thing. Like if you said, okay, I'm going to work out for 2.5 hours. I'm going to run. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you're just like, no, I'm not. But like, okay, now let's just go stretch, hit a walk, see how it feels. And it's like
what I did yesterday was an hour and 45 minutes. I just kept going. I went down and I was like, oh, I'll do the stairs. And I was like, I'll do like, I don't know, I'll do like 10 flights of stairs or whatever. And then I did 10 and I was like, I should do 15. And then I did 15 and I was like, I should do 20.
Hey, now. There we go.
And so I did 20. And then when I was done with the 20, I was like, okay, run down the stairs and see if you can run all the way back up that treacherous steep hill.
Oh God!
I ran up that deadly hill, and then I proceeded to walk for like 90 minutes after that. So,
with the weight vest on,
I had the weight vest on the whole time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. My traps are tight. My neck's all tight. Yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, whatever way you got to talk yourself into doing stuff that's difficult. And I think even something like a weight vest is, it's like a fat guy's way of like getting in some good cardio, because it's not that bad to throw on a weight vest and go on a walk. Mm-hmm. It's not that bad. Like if you don't ever want to mess with running or, maybe you don't want to really mess with, getting too deep into like cardio type stuff, but just putting on a weight vest ain't that bad. I actually like it, and it's great for like squats or push-ups or any of the other movements that you do. It just amplifies everything. I would say for most people, a 20-pound weight vest would be plenty, but one of the ones we have here is 40.
Yeah, that 20 and a 40. I need to buy one because it's super useful. I want to go walk with it. Mm-hmm. What's the brand that you have?
It's an XD official. It's called on IG.
Okay.
They actually they sold their licensing to what's the strap thing? What's that thing called? That massive strap? The straps that you use for like rows and stuff like that. The
Versa grips?
No. It's like a whole program. It's straps that attach to like a
TRX.
There you go. Yeah, I should know these things, but yeah, TRX.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, no, the stuff he was mentioning for like coaches in terms of building relationships, though, that's, I think a lot of people should think about that, building relationships with the clients that you're with online, because that's the only way. If your clients don't feel like they have a relationship with you or they know you, it's going to be hard for them to work with you. So, yeah, and he's doing that at scale too, which is really crazy.
I don't think that's talked about enough. I don't think that's talked about enough on how to, I know people mention it a little bit, but how to really motivate your online clients, I think is an amazing skill set to be able to have. I just know from my experience of working with people, never really did specific online coaching necessarily, but what happens is like that first couple days or first couple weeks, the amount of engagement is really high. Because they don't know, like, you might have gave them a list of foods they can eat, and then they go out to eat, and then a bunch of other lists of foods comes that maybe aren't on the list you gave them, and they're like, hey, what do I do? And they're kind of like in a panic, and so they ask you about kind of every situation in the beginning, and it's it's hard. But if you don't communicate with them, they will fail. And I've noticed that when people don't communicate back to you, that's a sign they probably screwed up somewhere along. Like if you were coaching me and you're working with me to lose weight, I'm checking it every week. Hey, I lost 4 pounds. Hey, I lost 2 pounds. Hey, I lost 2 pounds. Hey, I lost 2 pounds. And then, yeah, nothing. And then you text me, hey bro, how's it going? Nothing. Right. And then like finally after Christmas or whatever, after New Year's, I hit you back and like, yeah, man, like things went a little rough there. And you're like, yeah, I figured, right?
That's the thing. Like we're all like, everybody's human, you know what I mean? And it's hard to, when you fail at something and you have somebody that you're being accountable to, right? It's hard to tell them, yo, I kind of fucked up this week, or I kind of fucked up this past month, and I didn't want to say anything about it. It is tough, but it's one of those things where, I mean, you just gotta, it happened. Okay. Then just move forward past it. It's not that big of a deal.
All right, gentlemen, let's get on out of here.
Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. Thank you to Piedmontese for sponsoring this episode. For more information on them, please head to the iTunes show notes or whatever podcast app you're listening to this. Check out the show notes or the YouTube and Facebook description. Please follow the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. And Nsima, where you at?
Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Mark?
Dude, tell us about this fat loss autopilot, man. I'm enjoying watching it. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so like last week I made a series on IG because I was like, what are you guys having more problems with, fat loss or muscle gain? And like the majority of people were just like fat loss. So what I did is on Monday through Friday last week on my Instagram highlights, I just put some of the biggest habits as far as like lifestyle, nutrition, daily habits, potential supplements and stuff. And there's one more in there that I forgot. Oh yeah, whatever. But I put all those up there so people could kind of just like use it and try to just build in habits, because like when we talk about the stuff that we do on this podcast, a lot of the stuff we do is kind of automatic for us. You know, they're habits that we've built in. Well, the reason why I don't binge eat anymore is because I've utilized fasting and I don't eat any more processed food. So I like all these are habits that we have built in. So I just wanted to share that with people. And then the coming week, I'm going to have a challenge on Facebook where I'm going to try to like just kind of help people cement some of these habits in and give them a few like extra tools that they'll be able to do that with. And that's pretty much what it is. But I'm going to keep that on my IG highlights so that anybody can just like share that with somebody or give that somebody, because if they can implement like habits, it's much stronger than just like saying, oh, I eat this diet or this diet, because you can eat almost any diet, sans like, you know, processed foods. But if you have those habits in line, you're going to be okay. Like a lot of people have already DM'd me saying, I broke through a plateau in terms of my fat loss because I started chewing my food. You know, we got that from John Berardi. It's really simple things that just make a big old difference.
Yeah, chewing your food, getting better sleep. And when you're exercising, you know, if you are to do some HIIT cardio or something like that, because you would love for it to burn some fat, that's great. But sometimes you can overdo your training, and your training can make you even more hungrier. And really trying to battle hunger is a really tough thing, because hunger isn't so bad, but hunger a lot of times will turn into a craving as well. Mm-hmm. And I kind of think that sometimes I've noticed that when I overeat, when I'm really hungry, when I overeat, then I even still have a craving on top of it. It's a weird thing. So I have to eat a little bit before. You know, like I can't push that shit out too much, because my mind will wander, and I'm trying to stuff that before it ever occurs. But I love that. I think that's great. There's a lot of things that people can do to accelerate their fat loss that isn't necessarily just about like, hey man, you got to eat a lot less food, because we know that in the long run, that's not going to be anything that's going to be sustainable.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, we talk about sleep all the time on this podcast. I'm not going to go into it, but like last night, I think I got like 5 hours, right? Right now, I'm like deathly hungry. I knew by the afternoon today, I'm going to start feeling like super hungry because of what I did last night. I didn't get enough rest. So it's like simple things like that. You know, if you get enough sleep, it's going to work in your favor for your cravings. It's simple stuff. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Catch you all later.